Hello everyone and welcome back to Football Manager 2019 and the second part of this experiment where we're taking a look what would happen if a non-league team had unlimited riches. I know it says billionaire, but that is never enough money in this game. Now today I'm not going to pump any more money into the club because when they're in the lower league they don't spend that much money anyway because of financial fair play and all these other things that come into effect. So their £1 billion should last them at least until they get to the Championship. They have just finished third in the Vanarama National League, but you can see they beat Crewe 2-0 in the playoff final at Wembley in front of 30-odd thousand fans to get themselves into the Football League. So today we are going to go 5 years ahead into the future and see what they've managed to achieve. I think their progression is going to be a little bit slower than some of you were suggesting in the comments, but we'll see where they are in 5 years' time. If you are enjoying this series, make sure to hit that subscribe button. There'll be a few more episodes of this experiment and then lots more FM experiments to come. So let me know in the comments what experiments you want to see, and remember to hit that like button. But let's go forward now 5 years and see how they've got on. Well, we are now 5 years into the future. We're going to start by looking at their schedule and what they got up to in the league, or where they finished in the league, and then we'll look at their transfers and their general business overall after that. But let's start with this first season in the Football League proper. You can see they began their Football League campaign with a 2-2 draw. 2 goals for Basala Sambu. Ben Kennedy and Mark McKee, though, got early goals for Stevenage, which meant that they didn't get the win. They did beat Salford, though, 1-0. They had a man sent off early on, and Jamal Hector Ingram got the winner. Out of the Carabao Cup in the first round on penalties to Wickham, which is a bit unfortunate. But then they had a nice little run. 3-0 over Bristol, 1-1 draw with Port Vale, 2-0 away from home against Northampton, and 1-1 away from home against Burton as well. Their away form pretty good there because they'd won this early game as well. It's actually the home form that's letting them down. They hadn't even won a home game by this point of the season, and then they went out on penalties in the Checkatrade Trophy, or lost on penalties in the Checkatrade Trophy South Group D. They did then win their first home game 2-1 over Oldham. They beat Coventry away as well. Couple of defeats, but then carrying on winning. Billericay, people wanted me to keep an eye on them. They're doing okay, but beaten 2-1 by Chelmesford here. A few draws and a defeat in the Checkatrade Trophy to Brighton's under-23s, but then again a nice unbeaten run here, getting them through and also getting that win in the Checkatrade Trophy, the first one of the season, but not enough. They were knocked out of that. In the FA Cup second round, they lost 2-1 to Luton. They'd gone through after a 2-0 win against Maidenhead, but lost 2-1 to Luton. But they were still doing alright in the league until around this time. They had 2 wins here, but then a defeat to Salford. They only picked up 1 win across the next 6 games, something like 7 games, and then 1 win against Coventry, and again 3 games without a win. But then they did manage to get a few wins before at the end of the season they lost all of these games here in League 2. That's 12, 13, 14 points dropped in their last 5 league games of the season. But again, they got into the playoff semi-finals, drew 1-1 at home, and away from home were beaten 2-0. They played a friendly in June, which has showed up here for some reason, but they lost 2-0 to AFC Wimbledon in the playoff semi-final second leg, which meant they did get knocked out. But you can see that they did actually finish 7th, and if they had won just a couple of those last few games, they would have finished a bit higher up. They still would have had to take on AFC Wimbledon, because in the end they finished, about 8, 12, 13 points off where they should be. My maths has been terrible the last couple of days. But anyway, it wouldn't have been enough even if they had won a couple of those games. They would have needed to win all 5 to get into one of the automatic promotion spots. But very encouraging that in their first season they finished as high up as they did. So the second season in League 2, they started off with a lot of draws but did go through in the Carabao Cup against Portsmouth on penalties. Poor form hit them, and then they were knocked out by Wickham again, the second year that they've lost to Wickham in a cup competition. This form here was absolutely horrific, and they would have been in a bit of a relegation scrap by that point. But they did then manage to start winning a few games. They probably changed manager here, would be my guess. But knocked out of the FA Cup in the first round by Accrington Stanley. Again, just inconsistent form here. They did put a nice winning run together, especially towards the end of the season, really kicking on. A few defeats coming in, but then did they make the playoffs? They did not make the playoffs. If we take a look at where they finished, they ended up finishing in 10th place, so dropping back actually on where they were. And not making it into the playoffs. They ended up finishing 9 points off the playoffs, so really disappointing for them in the end. And then the next season, again, inconsistent. This is worse than what they were doing in their first full season, and knocked out by Coventry in the Carabao Cup as well. They also struggled in the Checker Trade Trophy a little bit, poor form around this time of year, and then again picking up into a nice winning run. One defeat to Plymouth in there, but generally doing well and beating MK Dons 2-1 in the FA Cup first round, and then Rochdale 3-1 in the FA Cup second round, meaning they got into the FA Cup third round. This is a brilliant winning streak here. And in the FA Cup third round, they did lose 3-2 to West Brom. Disappointing there because they were 2-0 up at one point, but 3 second half goals by West Brom turned it around. They'll get an achievement for that. A very good performance. Patchy towards the end of the season here, and then looking ahead towards the playoffs, if they've managed to get there, again, really falling away at the end of the season. A lot of defeats here. They've only won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games across about 15, 20 matches. And they failed to make it into the playoffs yet again. If we have a look, they did finish in 8th place. They were just 4 points outside it. But given how many games they lost at the end of the season, they were only 9 points off automatic promotion. So they must have dropped back quite some way after all of that, which is really frustrating. They should be spending a lot more money and getting up there. And it looks like they finally did here, because they started their season with a brilliant 7-game winning streak in all competitions, going through in the Carabao Cup before losing to Swansea 2-1 in the Carabao Cup second round, and then that led to their first loss of their league campaign. But again, a few more wins here, doing well. Inconsistent form here, 4 league games without a win before getting a few more on the go. Managed to get knocked out by Chester in the FA Cup after a replay. Really inconsistent form, but then it picked up a lot, unbeaten for a really long time, before then losing 4 games in a row and failing to win in 6. 1 win again here. What is it with the end of the season with this team? They just completely capitulate. And again, they failed to make the playoffs. How have they failed to make the playoffs after the start that they had? They ended up finishing in 10th place because they lost about 10 games at the end of the season. And every year, they just seem to fail at that point. But then looking ahead to the final season, again, a brilliant start to the season. Lots of wins, a couple of defeats in there, even more wins through the league. Doing very, very well. They were beaten 5-0 by Everton in the Carabao Cup there, which won't have helped their confidence and probably led to the defeat by Crewe. But again, this is a huge number of wins. Now, are they going to capitulate once again? Knocked out by Carlisle in the FA Cup, but their form is holding up in the league. They're doing extremely well. Few defeats at the end here, and there are no playoffs, which makes me think they did finally make it up into the automatic promotion spots. And you can see they finished in 2nd place, only 7 points off winning the title as well. So that is a very, very good performance by Chelmesford to finally get up there. But it has taken them a long time to do it. That's 5 years that they spent in League 2. And if we have a look at their profile here, you can see that they managed to get back-to-back promotions, but then 5 years in League 2 before finally getting promoted up into League 1. Now, if we have a look at their transfer history, we might be able to see why they were struggling. This is where we left off. 275k spent. They did go out and spend 1.4 million, but it was not a huge amount of money. £500,000 on someone from Luton. The next year, less than £1 million spent. 400k on Joel Newell from Rotherham. Year after that, 1.3 million, 1.2 million, a lot of free transfers coming in. And then this season, they have spent 2.5 million, £1 million on Daniel Pascal from MK Dons is encouraging that they are starting to splash a little bit more cash. But if we have a look at their squad and sort them by value, then we can see that at the top here, 675k is Simon Cross on loan from Everton, 650k for Daniel Pascal. They've got a lot of players worth about 200k, but it's not that much value in the team given how much money they have. And when we sort them by wages, you can see they've got players on 20 grand a week. This is a bit more sensible than where it was before. But this must be, you're looking at easily a League One Championship wage bill here with this number of players on 15, 20 grand a week. It's definitely a Championship wage bill, that. It's ridiculous that they'd been struggling in League Two with this many players in there. But if we look at their landmarks, going back from the 2021 season, they upgraded their stadium to 4,000, they increased it to 5,000. The chairman stopped being a sugar daddy and dropped down to what looks like an underwriter to me, changing their captain. But then they moved to Chelmesford Stadium, youth and training facilities upgrading, Cat 3 youth category as well, and promotion from the league. So if we have a look at their facilities, you can see they built a new stadium, Chelmesford Stadium, 8,708 all-seater. They don't pay rent in it anymore. It's owned by the club, so they built their own purpose-built stadium. It's got average corporate facilities, good training facilities, adequate youth facilities as well, and a stadium sponsorship deal. So that will have helped them. Average junior coaching, basic youth recruitment, youth facilities are okay, training facilities are good. They have spent a little bit of money on the club, and if we look at them, you can see their reputation. It was around 2,500 when we started this. It's now up to 4,200. They'll start to get some bigger names in. Club attendance has gone up to 2,820, not selling out the stadium yet. And there it is, Sugar Daddy Underwriter. I'll put him back to a front-end Sugar Daddy, which will help keep that money coming in. But you can see that they have got £624 million in the bank. Huge transfer budget, £174 million. Huge wage budget as well, but they just can't spend it because of fair play and all this other stuff that comes into it when you're in league football. 12 training facilities, though. They are increasing these quickly. They're putting money into the back end of the club, which will help. But I think they've still got quite some way to go. I do just want to have a look at the managers here, because we've had a few managers now come by, and it does look like they are sacking their managers pretty quickly, and that's where those turnarounds are coming in. You can see that Graham Wesley here was sacked despite winning the conference for them, or the old conference. And then they did have Mick McCarthy in charge for a year and 127 days. And then they had Slaviza Jokanovic came in, and now they have Luke Varney as their manager. He's on a couple of grand a week, which is not bad at all. So that's like about 100 grand a year that he's getting to manage a League Two team. So he's doing all right out of it. I'm not sure what his history is actually. He began his playing career at Corn, which I'm pretty sure is a meat substitute, but there you go. And then he went managing at Ipswich, Burton. That was still as a player there. So he was an assistant manager for the Plymouth under-18s, and then he moved on to become manager of Chelmsford. So this is the first proper team that he's ever managed. But he's held in the job for a year and got them promoted from League Two. So who knows, maybe he's got very high potential. But one way or another, we will see eventually Chelmsford climb up this league table. I'm not going to give them any more money because they're not spending it. I'll do that when they drop under about 100 million in the bank balance, or around that point I'll give them more money. But at the moment, we're just going to leave them to keep cracking on up the table. So next time, I'll probably go another 5 years ahead, or until something really interesting happens. But if you are enjoying this little experiment, do drop a like on the video. Remember to subscribe as well. The next part will be out probably tomorrow, maybe the day after. But until next time, see ya.